Greetings, everybody, and welcome to TV Skywriter. I'm your host, Patricia A. Murray. The show emanates from Durham, North Carolina, where I live. And let me tell you very quickly, TV Skywriter is an offshoot of the Durham Skywriter. So if you're in the Triangle area of North Carolina, you might want to check that out. It's an all-positive online community newspaper. You can find it at durhamskywriter.com. With that out of the way, I want to tell you about TV Skywriter. Basically, I talk to people from all over the world, basically. If you're a writer, musician, entrepreneur, or otherwise just interesting person, and you want to be on the show, just write to me, durhamskywriter@gmail.com. Okay, let's get to our guest. He is Mr. Ken Moshesh. This is very exciting for me. He's a fabulous musician, drummer, percussionist, who also played, let me look down and make sure I have the right name here, Sun Ra and his, because he's had more than one group. He was with Sun Ra and his Intergalactic Space Arkestra. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. It's been a long time since I first saw you over at the radio station.
Yeah, I used to do Radio Skywriter on WNCU. I met you there, and you were with like two other gentlemen. Who were they?
Right. At that time, I was with, and I still am. I still play with the D-Town Brass group here in the Triangle, and I was with Crow Meat Bob and another gentleman who played with us at that time. We were talking about an upcoming show that we were going to do at Motorco, I believe it was.
Right, that's right. Okay. So
Brendan was the other person.
Oh, okay. I noticed the edge of a couple of drums that you're kind of leaning on. And I'm wondering, when did you first get into music, and did you start as a little kid or as a young adult?
I tried as a little kid. I tried to get into every musical program that the public schools could offer, but we were moving around too fast. Mm-hmm. Nothing ever lasted. And I began to play a little guitar with my cousin, Phil Hall, who went on to become a music director at Emeryville High School, and I think he's over in Germany going back and forth at this point. And
where did you grow up?
This was in Oakland, California. Go to Oakland. And I was a pretty good student. I was a pretty good athlete, mm-hmm. and I wanted to become a pretty good musician, but the best I could do really was to get these, the old oatmeal boxes that the Quaker Oats used to come in. I used to turn those over.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's perfect.
And tried to work with that. And then once I got my nerve up and I looked in the back of one of the magazines that usually comes out, and they used to have these send-off for this thing, and I sent off for this drum that I thought would be big enough for me to play. And after I waited weeks for it to come, it got there. And the thing was so small, I almost started crying. That almost ended my drum.
Oh, no. You got duped.
Yeah, I really waited, and I was hoping for that I could finally come out. But drumming on things, listening to music, watching the rhythms of various things that happened, that was happening all the time. The official drumming itself, surprisingly, didn't start publicly until I went on a baseball tour of Europe. I was a pretty good baseball player and got selected to go with a group of players from Southern California to teach the European baseball clubs at that time. They were going to have a European tournament, and each one of us had to go with their clubs and teach them how to the finer parts of the game. Let's put it that way.
That's amazing.
And one of my,
was that a job, or was that something you did for fun?
We were selected from playing. I was at Claremont Men's College at that time, playing baseball, doing very well, so I was selected for the squad that went over, I guess, as a goodwill group to Europe. And one of my friends, I guess he was trying to impress one of the local ladies there, and so he asked me to come out to this place in Holland, mm-hmm. And he told her as I approached, "This is my friend. He's one of the best drummers, conga players in the world." Okay?
Oh.
And I go, I mean, they were cute. I could see what he was trying to do. But, because they had drums on the stage. This was in Appledorn, a city called Appledorn. I won't forget that.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted somebody to play them. So he said, oh, sure, you can play it. So I walked up there and I did my little thing while they played what
Uh-huh.
sounded like rock music, but it went off real well. And that was
Oh.
actually my first public thing. But then it got serious when I finally left Claremont Men's College. I came to UC Berkeley, and there was a drum circle in the Lower Sproul Plaza. It
Uh-huh.
was last about 40 years by the time it was over with, and it had been going on for about 3 or 4 years when I got there. And so every weekend, I think for, say, maybe 20, 25 consecutive years, Saturday, Sunday, from about 12 in the afternoon till the sun went down,
Uh-huh.
you could find me there playing there. Very, very few of those weekends that I missed, except for when Sun Ra came to town. Came up to my house and observed me playing some drums. I didn't even know he was back there. He asked me to come with him on tour, first in Northern California. We went to the Greek Theater and up and down Northern California before we went to Europe. And I began playing with the Sun Ra band.
So you mean to tell me it's not like you were even trying? You were just playing.
Um, it's even more complicated than that. At the time, I had gotten to the point where we had established ethnic studies, remember, departments at UC Berkeley.
Uh-huh.
We were a founding group, and I was a lecturer, then an associate professor for the Afro-American Studies program, and we had a division called Provista,
Mm-hmm.
which was performing and visual arts, and essentially what we were trying to do was create a concept in the performance world that would help us build the better state of affairs in this country. I was the person that was in charge of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they had invited Sun Ra out to become part of the program. We got there. It was a contentious situation we had at UC Berkeley. So when he got there, they claimed they couldn't find the housing that they had for him, so he had to go back. But instead, we got together, and Sun Ra and about 8 of his persons stayed up at my house. I had 2 houses at the time. My family went down to the Oakland house, and we had this house up in the Berkeley Hills. It's actually Kensington, but it was up high enough by Tilden Park where he could rehearse and practice. And
Nice.
as I came back from my duties, I would come back and I would be part of the conversations and the instructions that they had.
Now I want to stop right here because not everybody knows who Sun Ra was. So could you tell us just in a I don't know if it's possible. His career was like what, 60 years or so.
Yes, and in some ways it still continues. His spirit
That's
and
true.
his
The orchestra still
influences,
exists, right?
yeah, and his influences are still affecting me and other people that have been touched by those performances.
You're
But
absolutely right.
my understanding of Sun Ra, I think Sonny Blount was his original name. I didn't know that. I didn't know him at all when he first came there. I just knew it was a fellow musician, brother, progressive person in trouble, not having a place to stay, and I had a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't making the musical connection at the time. I was just in my garage where I had set my drums up in a
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
in a
sorry,
pattern,
my phone. Go ahead. Go ahead.
a space capsule.
Uh-huh.
And what I would do when I returned from the drum circle on the weekends, when I was up at my house in the weekdays, I was trying to figure out how to put together some sort of pattern, some sort of philosophy, some sort of way of playing drums in
Yeah.
a way that they could be a little bit more sophisticated and modern in their presentation. So when he came for me and took me on that journey, that was the fortification, motivation I needed, because he had started a band, this orchestra. He also had a philosophy that went along with it, and he was having a difficult time getting the major players in this country to accept his music.
Mm-hmm.
So he had his struggles, he had his trials. I watched him. He gave me some advice about what would happen when you begin to do something different, and especially if you begin to do something different well, the way the music industry was set up, that may not create as many positive reactions, and you may have to go through some things that normally you wouldn't if you just normally did what everybody else did and didn't rock the boat.
Yeah. Well, when did you first connect with Sun Ra?
So at my house then, that was 71, 72. It's way back in the day.
Okay.
And yeah, he was, 70,
Well,
69.
he was Sun Ra then. He wasn't Sonny Blunt then.
No,
Right?
no, he was always Sun Ra. This was Sonny Blunt that came back after I read about
Okay.
something after he passed away. He has always been and will always be Sun Ra.
Right.
And I think the only reason I put the Blunt out there is someone sent a thing on Facebook saying they thought the running back for the New England Patriots, who has the same last name, was one of his great nephews or something. I don't know if that was true or not. But yeah, someone sent something up like that. But he's always Sun Ra. He's always projecting that. And as a matter of fact, when I was here in Durham, I participated in the 100-year celebration for Sun Ra with David Menestries at the Neptune Club in Raleigh, and I got some film of that. And I met with some other people who too were captivated and motivated and stirred into action by the types of things that he did, and we were able to present a celebration of his life.
I'll bet that was super fun. I didn't get to go to that event. The only event I got to go to was the Sun Ra. There was a parade in Durham Central Park right before that concert, I believe, and it was like a celebration of creativity, and people dressed up in crazy outfits and whatnot, and a tribute to Sun Ra.
Yeah, I think that was the overall thing, the creativity, so it transcended music and went into other art forms and into other political and social and economic forms. Just the concept of looking for something different, looking at things in a different way, and in his case, looking towards the spaceways. Space Place was one of his favorite presentations, and it had so many connotations, especially for us now, because of the space age technology and concepts that came along with it that we now live in. And he was aware of that. He was singing that back in the 50s, 60s. Space is the place, and it turned out to be the very place.
I'm going to play something. It's just 20 seconds. I'm going to play something for you real quick.
The world was there to listen to jazz alternatives. This is Sun Ra, the voice of the cosmos, bringing a special message to you. The time has come, the walrus, there to listen to jazz alternatives on WKCRA FM 89.9 in New York. And keep listening from henceforth to the therefore, and whichever and whatever, space is the place.
Space is the place. I happened to record that when I was in college back in the 70s. I went to Fordham. Well, my home college was Talladega College in Alabama. And I went to Fordham my senior year as part of our very modest exchange program. And I actually recorded that off the air back in 1977. I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
Yeah, that was as I say, Sun Ra was Sun Ra.
Wow.
Ever since there was Sun Ra, okay, and as I say, it stirred and it motivated, and it gave determination to a whole lot of us who were trying to do something different, creative, who were running into obstacles every step of the way. Here was a guy who was able to do it, take it all over the country, the world, and make a different genre out of it. Now I use sunrise an adjective. Things are sunrise, and people understand what you're talking about. Okay, you know what it is.
Well, I didn't know it was an adjective now. Okay.
Yeah, he's done some. There's a certain creative, a sincere creative way of doing things that is always associated with him in his music and his dress and his philosophy, his use of language, and especially his concentration on the space. In fact, he got to the point where he was saying he felt he wasn't from this earth, he was from another place, which made you think about it. And now you got people, it sounded certain ways at certain times, and now you got people trying to prove whether there were actually space beings who came to this earth and actually populated it, etc. A lot of the things that he was dealing with and talking about that just didn't seem correct at all now are being considered acceptable for people to deliberate. It's so the space age technology, the ability to use drones and lasers and things of that sort. He was talking about that then. He was playing instruments and told me the astronauts who were just beginning to go into space, they should be listening to his music so they could prepare their minds for what they would accept up there. So that's where he was coming from. And being able to play every jazz piece anybody anywhere had ever played with his band. That's the thing that made him the powerful force. It wasn't that he was doing different things because he couldn't. It was because he had done all of that. And he thought, well, you know, there must be something more to that. And that's where I was at with the drums after playing so much and so often at the circles and drum circles in Berkeley and Oakland, Richmond, in that area. I thought, you know, there had to be something more. And then when I began to reflect more on the history of the peoples that played drums during the time, how usually their civilizations were taken over by other groups who were more interested in warfare and conquering and things of that sort. The first thing they usually did was to stop the persons who led the drum societies or the drum progression from playing, and thereby thwarted the natural evolution of this instrument the way other instruments were allowed to evolve during the years, so during time. So you have now, this instrument is kind of backwards in the sense that it has not been able to make its natural evolution. People who play this are usually in the back, usually on the side, usually marginalized, usually do not run bands, and usually cannot even get enough patronage to continue this. Very few people can do that, and when they do, usually they end up being the side for other instruments. Even if their group is, even if they have their group, they play a solo every now and then, but the melodies, the identifying things of the group are performed by the other instruments.
Right. And even when you see groups on TV or videos, very often they forget to show the drummer.
Right. Well, and if someone can't make the trip, it'll be the conga player. If the mic breaks down, take the mic off the conga player, etc. In fact, technologically, you know, this was the technology of music, recording, notating, never intended for these drums to be in it, therefore they don't fit. There's no musical notation that will show you how to play a conga melody or symphony. There's no writing for that, and the writing that was done for musical notation does not include the types of sound and activities that occur on this instrument. So anybody who had to go that way.
I want to ask you a little bit about that, because when it comes to Sun Ra and some of the other music that you play, for those, again, I would like for you to Google Sun Ra. I mean, he dressed as if he were from outer space. He was very otherworldly. And in fact, I wanted to ask you, I know that he spent before he met you, he spent maybe 15 years or so in Chicago as a musician. I always wondered if now I'm from Chicago, and Earth, Wind, and Fire had a very otherworldly, outer space type of persona, and many of the members of Earth, Wind, and Fire were with the Pharaohs, and they had an Egyptian kind of otherworldly type thing going. And then there was a musician named Bebop Sam and Spaceship Love, and I'm wondering if he influenced all those people in Chicago. Do you happen to know?
Oh yeah, especially the Earth, Wind, and Fire. That was constant conversation. Maurice White, I believe it was, and other members have played with Sun Ra, as have many people in the various groups that he had. And anytime you see him play, there is no way for you not to come away with something that's going to make you think about doing something a little different. Most people didn't have the skill, determination, creativity to keep it up throughout their entire career and make it as knowledgeable, as acceptable as Sun Ra did. They might have gone.
Yeah, Phil Coran is another gentleman. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, there are lots of people. In fact, I doubt if you can mention or talk to anyone who's in the field that would not say something about Sun Ra, that something that they could trace back to seeing him do something, or just getting the courage to do something different that you came up with. So he mainly stood for, if you happen to decide that maybe we should go in a direction like this, go ahead, let's see what happens. And if you get to those points where people consider them impossibilities, that's just the beginning of the music. That's the kind of concepts and the type of understandings I was dealing with these drums, because they were very limited in the traditional forms that were allowed to come to this country. In fact, it wasn't until the 1920s, I believe, that drums, even the trap drums, were even allowed to be in jazz music, much less other music that was available. Those drums, this is all brand new. And what you have is the remnants of the traditional drums from various drum cultures that were able to get some of their things to pass through, but it's been watered down, filtered, changed, etc. At every step, it's been oppressed and not supported as a major instrument. So, you know, hence now that we're coming out, most people are, I don't want to use that word, retarded in their playing of the things that they consider legitimate on these instruments. We are only playing what people used to play a long time ago, and there's never been any encouragement or any conceptual basis for people to take this instrument and take it to the level that other folks have taken the lute and the other early instruments, the one-string guitar, every one of the instruments that you see, they had some predecessors that were very primitive, and the things that people did were very primitive, but they were allowed to evolve with societies into the space age, and so now you have some very sophisticated and some very talented people who have evolved from the other people who were allowed to do this type of music, and you get that type of sophistication. The drums are not allowed to do that.
Now, that leads me to ask you this. Is it possible for you to explain your development? I mean, you have something called the Ameri-Cosmic Drumming. What is
right.
What is that?
And it's out of that context, where you can tell by the name, cosmic is in there. That's all over the Sun Ra influence, and there's some other influences. And America is in front because most of the rhythms that I was able to hear, deal with, sense, feel, came via the Americas. You know, I toured Europe a couple of times, but that was not the place where this type of thing was being done often enough to absorb something into the system. So the Ameri-Cosmic Drumming System is a drumming system that includes every other type of drumming known to man, which means known to me at this point. There's room for other people who have heard other things to build their own systems. But what it does is each one of these traditional universes or worlds, universe in the sense of the cosmos, universe in the sense of mathematics, universe in the sense of traditions, each one of these traditions, Latin tradition, Afro-American tradition, Filipino tradition, each one of these traditions are but units in a larger drum system. So instead of being limited by being able to just play in those areas and limiting my skills and my knowledge, I spent lots of time. This is about the 45th year now of working on this continuously and finally getting to the point where I can demonstrate and teach and show and explain what it is. A system where you can traverse, like Sun Ra, the spaceways, you can traverse all of these systems and play sophisticated and, most important, repeatable melodies within the recording technologies that we have today.
So when you hear this information, is it something that you've figured out how to write down, or is it shared and taught, by ear?
This is part one of the first part, was to present it and show people how to do it. That's why the Kickstarter project that's going now is dealing with that part. The second part would be trying to figure out how to create a system where you can transfer it that people will accept universally. I can teach anyone how to make these systems so that they can repeat them and explain it to someone else, but it has to go further than that to get a universal system, because the normal system of music based on notes, etc., the octave system, etc., is not used for these drums. Some people try to do that, and that's why they run into the brick wall. These drums, if anything, maybe they have two, we'll use your words, tones on them.
Okay.
So in order to play something, I found, just like you saw Sun Ra talk about Egyptian hieroglyphics, you get some astrological people talking about different constellations in the sky, mathematicians talking about geometric formulas, etc. It takes a combination of those to explain how to play these particular things over and over again. So if you were to say you're playing this particular rhythm from any system, any style, let's play it as this right angle, or this triangle, or this square, or this thing that we don't even have a name for this, but I've seen it on hieroglyphic walls in ancient civilizations, and I've seen it in constellations, and I can ascribe it on my drums. So I can say to a person, or I can say to myself, let's play it this way again, and continue to do it that way.
Can you demonstrate anything of that for us? I know that you have your compass in front of you.
Can you see the top of these drums, or any parts of it?
I can.
Okay, well, the simplest thing, and it's very, when you talk about it, it's very obvious and simple, but the courage of someone to be in the midst of drummers who have a certain tradition and a certain way and a certain pecking order and a certain aura about what they do, to say, let's do something different. See, it was the biggest problem. Once the conquerors put the drummers in a certain box, then once they left, those who were in that box kept everybody in that box. So we play the same thing. So if you play, I have a drum over here. This is drum. I think they still call it a doom doom. Usually you play with the stick.
Okay.
And I'm playing a rhythm. I could pick any one. I'll pick this rhythm right here. And it's very simple. It's from the top to the bottom. Now I could have a group of people, and it would take 3 people to play what was recognized as a melody. This drum might be playing one thing, and this drum would be playing something else. But there would be another drummer playing this drum. This one drum on the left side, one person is doing that. So the first thing in the Ameri-Cosmic, the first concept was to develop some techniques so it doesn't take 3 people always to play something that's recognizable. See, this drum, I would be just playing that.
Right.
The other person is playing that. And the parts would come together, and you would hear that thing.
Nice.
So I'm saying, okay, well, let's put this together. So the first skill that had to be learned was one hand playing over the top of the other hand. Most drum situations, one hand is just sitting there, and it's doing nothing, because the part that you play is just that part, and you'll get in the way. So I've established it so you can play it that way. Okay, so there's music. There's such a thing called trance music. So most of the drummers and people from that culture invented something called trance music, which means you just play the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And in most cases, because there was nowhere to go. But like other music, which started out like that, then all of a sudden people started playing composition. So how do you compose something on a drum and then come back and do it again? The most simple one composition, I'm going to take this, we'll give this rhythm a name, and I'm going to begin it with a 3-point universe. There's 1 point here, 2 points here, 3 points here. Okay,
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So I'm going to start this rhythm, and instead of playing it in a straight line, I'm going to play it at an angle. Now that there is a rhythm that it would take 3, 4, 5, all sorts of people just to put it together because it's difficult to do. But one person, given the skills and the concept, can do that. And so when I get to a certain number of beats, I'm going to change the rhythm. And what I've done is I've changed the origin point. Okay, so it's like making a chord change. I'm going to go back to the original point.
Okay.
And so that would be like A and B.
Okay.
And there's always a C. So the third one will be. Now from the C position, I'm playing the same pattern, same angle, only they're starting at different places, which makes the sound, the melody different.
That's an interesting concept.
And so what I can do, I can say, okay, this song I'm going to play from this position, A position, then I'm going to play a right angle song from the A position to B to C, A, B, C. Then I'm going to go back and start B, C, A, B, C, A. Then I'm going to go C, A, B, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there, I can describe a song that I can play over and over. And every time I start again, it's going to be the same thing. And I know it's going to be that way because that's what I programmed.
Okay, now nobody else does this, right? This is your invention?
Yeah. This is, well, the problem with it is no one else feels like they're traditionally playing the drums doing that. They might get to hear, but again, this is one drum is doing that, and the other drum is doing that, so together you get that. And when you learn drums, you learn very clearly, that's your place, you stay there, you don't move. And there's a point to that. You have to have these rhythms inscribed in your mind, so it takes that type of repetition. But see, what didn't happen is, okay, after that, what do you do with that? You know, all sorts of things can happen, but you're still playing the same melody, the same rhythm. And if you want to play one that you can go back to again, you can write that, you can describe that, you can play that, you can play it on different levels. And then difficult things that were considered impossible things, you see, well, if you want to continue, you're going to have to develop some skills. Before, if you could only play, this is my left hand, you see, my right hand, one hand plays and the other hand is the left hand, the dead hand, the floating hand. It doesn't play. Okay, if you solo, you might be able to do that. But if you play this way on this drum, with left-handed, you should be able to play right-handed. So you can get a melody that starts this way. Tell which way, if you're going to play left or right. And you can control that. You can write that. You can come up with melodies. You can come up, and you can come up with, you know, you can come up with chants. People have gone that far. But since we're in America and English, and we've had guitar players and other persons to go around and sing songs, you should be able to sing too. Let's see, what song should I make? Things that people believe in. the sun will rise. Okay, and I have songs that fit with rhythms. That one, it was not the song for it, but you know, these techniques, these styles, music has evolved to that. You have to be able to do that as a musician. We got left behind, and we got marginalized. We got non-supported, so there was no reason for anybody to go beyond that. That's all you can do. And if you were good enough to be a soloist, I don't think I could play low enough for you to really see what could happen. Then you make a fetish out of fast and rips and things, but then there's no presentation, there's no repetition, you can't repeat it. And then you don't have a category. We're not recognized anywhere in the Hall of Fames and the Oscars and the Grammys. We got close with Latin jazz, but then they kicked that out with 1 year. They said that's not going to happen. Well, there should be a category for percussive music, but then we have to have some percussive music that can be repeated, that can be replayed, that can show some more sophistication, technology, and arranging and composing of the people, and that's what I'm about now. I have quite a few presentations on YouTube. I have on my own web page and things of that sort. I play with the D-Town Brass because the point is not to make a system that's isolated to itself. I want to show also this is how this system fits in to a larger group. This is an 18-piece band that plays jazz that reminded me when I came here of Sun Ra. This is one of the reasons I played with them, because they were out there making all sorts of kind of music and asking drummers to do things that the drummers were saying to them, that's not, drummers don't do that, which was true, but that's exactly what I wanted, was to play the things that drummers don't do, because I could play it.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, tell us about your, in the last few minutes that we have, tell us about your Kickstarter campaign and what you're trying to do.
What I'm getting ready to do now is I need to put together some music that the public can enjoy. I need to put together some music that I can take to the National Institute for the Arts to be recognized as an indigenous Native American art form, and that needs to be done at a quality studio. As I mentioned, the regular recording things were never intended to record this, so it's very difficult to record drum music. So I'm putting together the songs, the new songs that I'm making. We're going to do that in the studio Sound Pure here in Durham, and we'll come up with a very well recorded, very well sounding type of modern recording, so that you can hear the sophistication, now that some sophistication can be put into the drums. The other thing I wanted to show, I had that talking drum, but I won't get to that, but I do want to show this I guess they call it a pan flute. I call it a wind drum. But in addition to playing the melody there, these two instruments, this one and this one, I think were probably the first two instruments blowing wind into a hollow thing. Et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
You know, this first, I can play this. You know, people used to have these as trinkets and toys, but they don't make any sound, and the only people who would play them would come from the Andes, and they would be that huge. But this is an instrument.
Yeah.
You know,
heart, versions of those.
Lungs, wind go together, heartbeat, breath got to go together. So I called it a wind drum, so you'll see that in my presentations too.
Nice. So did you have anything else to tell us about your Kickstarter campaign before we say goodnight?
The way they set that up, you have an internet address. If you go to Ken Moshesh Kickstarter project, it's called the Ameri-Cosmic Drumming, but Ken Moshesh Kickstarter project, Ameri-Cosmic Kickstarter project will get you there.
I'll
you have an opportunity to pledge
with this video. Yeah.
An opportunity to pledge either $1 or $20 or $50 or $100 or $500, and they all have different rewards towards this project. It has a certain date. I think we're about down to the last 12 days, we had a problem at the beginning. They couldn't accept the pledges. There was a technical problem they had, but I think we'll still make it anyway. But you can go there. You can get the information on the pledge side. You can get examples and samples of the music that's already recorded. I have about 20 of them at Bandcamp. This Bandcamp internet spot. You can buy things from $1 on up if you want to do that. You can download things, but you'll see some of the different types of things. A few of them have been recorded at better studios, and you can see the better results. But even still, it is extremely difficult for people to know how and to have the type of filters, like the Pro Tool filters that they have at this studio, to actually record and be able to differentiate the different drumming sounds. But I would encourage people who want to hear some different type of music or some familiar types of music played in different ways with a different instrument that's coming into its own to go to the Kickstarter Ameri-Cosmic Drumming Project, Ken Moshesh Drumming Project Kickstarter. Those words will get you in there, and we'll take you from there.
Now, this question might be too obvious, but I have to ask it. So, the goal of the Kickstarter is for you to record, is it going to be a physical CD?
It will be a digital CD for sure. We have the capability of making it a physical CD. We'll determine whether that's going to be necessary. We'll make some because I have to take some to the National Endowment for the Arts. But this goal is to make it a digital, but it's just a technical glip to turn it into a CD. Or we may go ahead and turn it vinyl. Vinyl is coming back now. It has a warmer sound. It has a better sound. It may be more suited to what we're doing, but it will be extremely high quality. That's the goal, is to play something equal to the types of music that other instruments play and have people take a listen and then hopefully begin to take another look at this particular thing and free all the drummers who are still stuck into these traditional things, free them to go ahead and explore and come up with different ways that this instrument can be played.
Beautiful.
Usually, like when I met Sunrise, I played 5 drums. He came there. I've done symphonies. I have 20 or 30 drums and things of that sort. And all those things are on YouTube. So I think a person could get a good idea of what's possible if somehow this type of music was supported and was recorded properly.
Nice. Well, thank you very much, Ken Moshesh, for being on the show. I will provide links when the show finishes, becomes a YouTube video. I'll go back, download it, add the rolling credits and the links and all that sort of thing. So don't worry. All the information that the audience will need will be right there. Okay, folks, so you just saw TV Skywriter. If you'd like to be a guest on TV Skywriter, or you know someone who's really creative, entrepreneur, inventor, musician, writer, whatever, just write to me. I'm Patricia A. Murray. Write to me at durhamskywriter@gmail.com, and I will get back with you. Thanks again, Ken Moshesh, for being on the show.
All right, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much. And check out the website. I think you'll like it.
I will. Okay, folks, you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Ciao for now.